Welcome to today's Entrepreneur, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business, presented by FL Montreal. Dan Delmar and Mike Newton with you today. Good afternoon, Mike.
Hey, Dan. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Today on the program, we have a couple of younger entrepreneurs who are already starting a second venture. So we're going to talk to Berman and Jeffrey Climan from Clickspace and Montreal Mini Storage. So a bit of a traditional business, the storage business, but then merging that with an online property and taking it to new heights. So it's a really interesting sort of all-in-one platform to help people grow their business at the manufacturing level, which I think is pretty interesting and something that we've touched on a few times in the past few weeks, Mike.
Yeah, definitely, and it's interesting to, like you said, the mix between the traditional and the newer space, all pretty much operating at the same time. So it'll, give everybody a little bit of hope that not everything that was traditional has gone by the wayside at this point.
And later in the program, we're going to talk about HR issues with our consultant Alita Eid, and Alita will talk about post-COVID issues, in particular, employee experience, and ensuring how people can adapt their practices to this new environment. That is all coming up in a little while, but first, as usual, news and notes, Mike. And this one is, of course, an ongoing issue as we talk about leadership and not just thought leadership, like we talked about last time, but all kinds of leadership and the skills founders will need to succeed in 2021. This piece from Inc.com. What do you think? What are the major ones? Let's actually start with empathy, because that's I think a big theme of 2021 is leaders having empathy to deal with all kinds of issues.
Well, I think it's deeper than empathy. I think ultimately, at the end of the day, it's everything that falls under the emotional intelligence component. I mean, certainly, when I go back to the late 80s, early 90s, when I was in McGill, emotional intelligence was not a subject that was ever brought up. I mean, now you're talking about starting a business today. You better understand the people you're working with. You better understand your space, in the room with everybody else. And there's no doubt that empathy is one of the largest ones to understand. And if you're going to start anything today, people are going to come and join you, or whether they're coming back to work from having been off for a year and a half or 2 years. There's a lot of people that are having a rough time right now, and you better be able to understand what makes them tick and how to get the most out of them by being empathetic.
What other qualities do you think are necessary to this time in particular?
Well, I think the discussion of resilience and grit is always going to be always going to be important. I mean, I got a good chuckle out of when I was looking at this article, and basically their definition of grit is of being a founder is like getting punched in the face every day. I thought that was a pretty good way to start your day. It's a good kick in the pants or a wake up call. I mean, I think you've got to be able to roll with the punches. You've got to be able to be tenacious. You've got to be able to to take things to be able to bounce back, and the resilience is obviously key in the COVID world that we're living in now. But I think the resilience is even stronger right now, that you got to recognize that every day is going to be a challenge going forward in a difficult economy, and not so much because of the economy itself being, uncertain. It's the emotional state of everybody that's being a little uncertain at this point.
Another thing they mentioned, of course, is long-term vision. How do you even have a long-term vision at this point? Sometimes I chuckle when clients ask for, 1 or even 2 year marketing plan. I sometimes say, can we just maybe go quarter by quarter for now and see how things go?
Well, it's interesting because one of the other articles that we're going to make reference to has a discussion of change management and looking at things on a short-term basis. So you're going to get both ends of the spectrum in this conversation. And I think, if you're going to start something, I think you have to be able to look past the short-term hiccups, and you have to be able to create something that's going to have longevity and something that is going to have long-term power. I mean, there's no doubt that you cannot get into business, especially right now, with the expectation of either, swinging for the fences right away, or even if you happen to hit a home run right away, how is that going to last on a long-term basis? I think there are so many factors out there that are going to see us, bounce back and forth. You have to be able to tie in the short-term and the long-term and be able to see past, because I think there's going to be a lot of businesses that are going to be suffering coming forward.
This piece from HBR, 6 Steps to Agile Change Management. So getting a bit more into the nitty gritty of how to change your organization in these volatile times. Mike, what are your thoughts there?
Well, change management, actually, I should leave that to Alita because that's her specialty at the end of the day. But I think you're talking about, transformational leadership. You're looking at new mental models. I think you're looking at things and coming to the table with your team and looking at things differently than you did before. I don't see how everything is. If you come back to work, or people and your employees come back and it's business as usual, you're in for a rude awakening. So I think the change management at this point is revolved around a number of things. One of them, I think, is going to be declaring a very clear vision for change. And what is it that you want to bring to the table? What is it that, how you want to accomplish things? We grow up in a world where our strategic plans are long-term, where our thought process is long-term. I think right now what's going to be important is for not getting everything down pat 100%, but more importantly, getting the vision out there, getting people to understand where you're going, recognizing that, a chunk of people are not necessarily going to get it, and just make sure that they don't necessarily get in the way while you look at making the change while they're trying to adapt to a much slower thought process. And that's a very difficult position. I think you're going to see people emerge with leadership skills, and I don't think it's going to come with a job description or a business card. It's going to come with the styles that they have. And at that point, then what you really need to do is encourage those people that can be accountable to start taking the ball and running with it, and learning as leaders as we are to kind of take a step back and not be in full control of everything on a short-term basis.
That self-organizing principle is kind of interesting because managers tend to be very regimented. How do you make sure that your style is being implemented as you keep delegating more?
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge. I think a lot of this is really going to be trial and error and on a lot of things. And I think you have to empower the people that can make the changes. You have to be there to support and encourage. You have to, in many cases, you actually have to encourage making mistakes at the end of the day to try and get through where we stand. I mean, again, we live in a world of an attempt at perfection every day, which we all know that from an entrepreneurial standpoint is actually, the antichrist to moving forward. Is you need to make mistakes, you need to embrace mistakes, and you need to learn from mistakes. So you need to create a culture that is open to testing things and trying things and learning things, and not, put everything in concrete and say, well, here's the decision you've made and you got to stick to it going forward. Try it, see if it works. If it doesn't work, regroup, put your tail between your legs, but don't stop doing things.
And Mike, lastly, I didn't see us talking about stoicism on the program, but here we are, and you chose a piece you wanted to discuss from the Daily Stoic, and I thought that was super interesting. It's about the power of consistency. And for those who haven't read up on Stoicism, I mean, it's all about consistency and trying to regulate your emotions and being as, not emotionless necessarily, but at least as neutral seeming as you can in your everyday life.
Yeah, I do see this tying in a lot to the emotional intelligence component of where we stand at the end of the day. I mean, there's two aspects here. One is consistency. So whether you're leading, people, whether it's yourself, this ability to try and not be bipolar in your approach to information or your approach to dealing with people goes a long way in providing them, a safety net and an environment that allows them to think and to try things and create a psychological safety. The other thing that's interesting, and I found in this article, is, everything you see on television, everything you read talks about this 30-day test. Take the 30-day cleanse, take the 30-day challenge, and at the end of it, you'll be a whole new person. Well, if anybody can find anywhere where that 30 days has any relevance to anything and why it's not 27, 42, or 108 days, especially when I find it very interesting when, over the years, they've said from an addiction standpoint, it takes 21 days to create a habit, not 30 days. So, we live in a world of marketing that tells us, if you do a cleanse for 30 days, or if you do this for 30 days, you're going to have it nailed. And the problem is with that, it's like, rapid weight loss programs. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you drop 20 pounds and you say, great, in 30 days. The reality is, the likelihood is you're going to put it back on again. So by staying consistent, chances are your chances of success at the end of the exercise are significantly higher than this constant up and down and jumping back and forth.
And Mike, let's get to our profile for this time. Simon Berman and Jeffrey Climan, they are owners of Montreal Mini Storage and the new venture called Clickspace. Simon and Jeff, welcome to today's Entrepreneur.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Well, guys, we'll take a step back in history when we're dealing with partners. It's always one of the things that always I find very interesting is why partners initially get together. What is it you see in each other? Are you, opposites that attract? Are you providing each other different support? Did you grow up together, or did you run across them on the street and say, "Hey, you want to start a storage business?"
I'll handle that one, Jeff, if that's okay with you. So, how did we get together? So, the business of Montreal Mini Storage started in 2004 on my own. Not too long after that, I realized a need to expand. And Jeff was working at the time in New York in finance industry when the Great Recession hit. And the company around him where he was working was pretty much imploding. We both saw a really good opportunity for him to come back to Montreal and help me grow and expand this business. And we have since gone from that single location, grown up to 10 self-storage facilities today, and a total of 15 commercial properties under management together.
So define the difference between storage and mini storage other than the obvious size.
Well, a storage warehouse where one would typically rent space for a business would require a long-term lease. It's a little bit less flexible, certainly some kind of credit check. And most importantly, you would sign on for a set amount of space for a set amount of time. Whereas in our industry, in mini storage, there's a high degree of flexibility. The leases are month to month, and very frequently, and within our company, we allow clients to even switch their space to grow or shrink in the middle of a month. So it's really flexible. And of course, you mentioned the size factor, which is very important. We rent spaces as small as a closet you'd find in your home. So not typically available in a regular commercial real estate environment.
So all of this is done on a month to month basis. What is, I guess, ultimately at the end of the day, who are your big customers? Is there a market in particular that you're going after, or is this just anybody and everybody?
I mean, it is actually for everybody and anybody. It ends up being a large percentage, probably about 2/3 or a little bit more than that, of residential clients storing their personal belongings. But we do cater to a large amount of small businesses for that remaining 1/3. So considering we now have around 7,000 storage units in Montreal, it's probably about 2,000 businesses that we're servicing today on any given day.
So, clearly it was obvious that, going from mini storage to Clickspace was the logical next step. So maybe give us a little bit of an insight as to how you saw a need to create Clickspace, and give us a little bit of insight as to what exactly Clickspace is.
We saw the need to bring a house to all of these e-com entrepreneurs in Montreal that does not exist yet today. We felt that, based on our current operating business, we were in a unique position to fulfill that demand in Montreal. We already have, a call center, back office staff. We have a lot of experience with short-term rentals, logistics, and we have been supporting our e-com entrepreneurs for many years already. Coupled with the fact that we have a sizable real estate portfolio, currently at 15 buildings, and acquiring more every year, we have the ability to grow this Clickspace platform very quickly within Montreal, and expand the locations to everybody. So, it was really a great fit from Montreal Mini Storage to pass over to Clickspace, offering these flexible spaces, short-term rentals to this market.
So we all know the popularity of co-working, of course. Is this, I guess, co-manufacturing?
There is an element of, workshop space. So the difference between co-working and this would be, this provides you a space as well to operate your business within, as in have yourself a workspace where you could receive shipments, package shipments, a small warehouse space, not just a small office. And as well, we have, the shipping capabilities that you would not have from a WeWork.
What would a floor layout look like? I mean, everybody's kind of used to, as Dan says, the office space sharing in a WeWork. I mean, this sounds a little more complicated.
So a lot of the office elements will be very similar to what you would find in a WeWork. So we like to say that if we work and a third-party logistics center had a baby, we would end up with Clickspace. So there are different areas that our members and entrepreneurs would pass through. So they have quiet work areas that would have everything you would find in a conventional co-working space. We have postponed, unfortunately, the launch of our hot desks and those common desks just due to the pandemic. We hope to launch those pretty soon. So at the beginning, it will be mostly private offices of various sizes for an individual all the way up to a company. We would offer shared conference rooms and other amenities, including podcasting studio, photo studios, and seated in this community, we have our partner companies, which will be vendors and service providers to the e-com world. You could think photographers, videographers, digital marketing experts, import, export experts, and people who really service those communities already and are now located, scattered in offices throughout the city, have chosen to sign up and locate themselves within Clickspace so that these resources are simply a walk down the hallway rather than a phone call or an appointment away. So we really want to offer that full turnkey, everything under one roof experience that you can't find anywhere else.
Interesting, because I think a lot of the residential projects that have gone up in Montreal have been trying to create this sense of community, so that you had, your apartment or your condo, and you had the stores, you had everything kind of within one, one building or very short space. And you guys are looking at doing this really at a corporate level. What are you providing shipping, or are the tenants responsible for their own inventory control and their own shipping?
So, that's a great question. One of the most important services that we will be offering will be a full third-party logistics solution. Many people don't really know what that is, but think anything to do with your orders from the time they arrive at the port of Montreal and we brought into our center. They will be sorted and placed on shelves. Anytime an order came in on your website, we would be plugged right into that system. Somebody would pick that off the shelf, pack it in a box, and get it out to your customer immediately. So this is something that would be going on every day behind the scenes. It is optional. All of our services are a la carte. So we allow our clients to do a do-it-for-me solution like that, as well as a do-it-with-me solution where we would provide discounted packaging, discounted shipping labels, and all of those bulk discounts that we've already negotiated through our fulfillment center. So the order fulfillment process itself is being done by us. We have a joint venture partner who has been doing this for almost 30 years and one of the most successful and long-standing 3PL centers in Montreal. And they've chosen to come along for this journey and service smaller e-com businesses that up until today have no access to that type of service. It's very hard to get into these third-party logistics centers if you're small. Typically, they have very large minimum quantities for monthly rents and products on the shelf. So we're offering an entry-level service that is world-class and enterprise class, the same as you would get from an Amazon. Similar price points, but accessible to all, so that we could really empower some of these startups and businesses today that are struggling to take care of the logistics on their own, a solution that allows them to really focus on what they do best, growing their business, servicing their clients, finding new products, rather than stuffing boxes.
Guys, we're talking about sort of pushing the model a little bit, the storage model, and you guys are going to be converting at least one of your buildings to Clickspace coming up in the next few years, with the goal of, I believe you said 5 in the next few years. Simon, how ambitious are you with this digital pivot?
We do intend to launch 5 locations by 2025, and we don't actually feel that that is overly ambitious. The market has grown probably 3 times as fast as we thought it would only 18 months ago. The pandemic really accelerated the shift to online shopping. And in addition to that, there is a major space crunch in Montreal, especially for industrial and warehouse type space. So we feel that there's such a large demand that we probably will still be quite underserved. So We'll launch our first location, which is really going to be a proof of concept, which is going to help us shape our next one. We aim to open in locations that are already quite populated with digital entrepreneurs, and there are a few neighborhoods. I don't want to get into any specifics on that, but we could say that we'll be represented throughout the Greater Montreal area by the end of 2025, and probably roll out throughout Quebec soon after that, and we hope to license the concept across Canada. So we do have some very ambitious growth plans, but it really starts with the first, which is set to open, at least the fulfillment center, this June, which is in a couple of short weeks. And we're going to take everything we learned there and apply that in the next locations.
Awesome sounding. It's nice to hear the positivity in the real estate world after all the commentaries we've heard during COVID. So let's talk about the community. And by the community, I touched on it before, the self-contained environment that you guys are creating. I think you're building, Jeff, I think you guys are building an environment that is, like you said, it's a one-stop shop. But I think it's more than that. I think it's about an experience, and it's about a going somewhere that you like to go to. And then I know you guys said, well, you don't have to come, you can send this stuff. But based on some of the things you told me, I can't see why people wouldn't want to go. So maybe give us a little bit of a description. Thank
you, Michael. It is definitely about the experience. We are trying to create this flexible space for e-com entrepreneurs that have different needs. Some might be on site and want to take advantage of our amenities. Others might want just to ship their goods there and let us handle that part of the business for them. What amenities will be on site will be a podcast and broadcast studio. We're going to have an event space on the ground floor of the building as well, to be used by our members. There is a rooftop lounge, cafeteria, an outdoor athletic center, a cafe. So, it's really to meet the needs of all the entrepreneurs and what they might need to expand and grow their business, along with what they'll have in their space. They could choose between an office, or that workshop where they'll have a warehouse space, or simply that storage space. And rentals will be as short as 6 months. So to provide that flexibility, as well, from our experience from the mini storage world, we understand the shifting needs of people, and to cater to that different size of space and fast flexibility to expand or to reduce your business.
It's interesting because you mentioned the menu-driven component before in terms of pricing, and I'm sure the more I listen to you talk, the more I listen to this is less about a rent and more about a membership fee type of arrangement in the utilization. So it'll be interesting from your perspective, Simon. How are you going to get the message out of what this is going to cost and how you're going to attract and how you're going to price and not confuse the daylights out of most people?
Well, we're going with two sizes of office, small and large. So the small would be typically for a single person outfit. That person would be able to have meetings, either smaller ones in a conference room for up to 10 people, or if they needed to have a larger gathering, we do have our podcast studio, which is also an auditorium. We'll be hosting hopefully in-person seminars soon, each month on various topics in e-com. So how are we going to get the word out in general? Believe it or not, the word has kind of snuck out already, and we've received a tremendous amount of demand. So there is a huge hole in the market at this moment. So we do have a very, very detailed marketing plan involving PR as well as conventional digital marketing in order to attract leads. But we have a network right now, as I explained, of about 2,000 commercial clients, many of which are already e-commerce entrepreneurs. Just in general, between Jeff and our other partners, we have a very, very large network of entrepreneurs here in Montreal. So we're not really too concerned about the word getting out, but we will most definitely have to educate the market on what it is that we're offering. So we're going to do that through PR and through other conventional digital marketing messaging, through social media, and of course through search engines.
It's definitely unique for a Montreal environment. Have you modeled this off of anybody else, anywhere else, either in North America or Europe or somewhere else?
Yes, we have. The concept actually started from a company in Australia. Um, we looked into this company. It's probably about 18 months ago, and what they were doing in terms of the community-driven and the logistics hub and their forefront in the e-com, which actually started before COVID hit. With the with COVID coming into the fold, we did from our original model scale back a bit of the community aspects of it. Originally we're going to have training rooms and seminars, very large rooms for people to congregate in, and really to foster that community-driven collaboration between e-com entrepreneurs. So much can be learned from people that have started 6 months ago in this world. A lot of collaboration and opening up the doors for people to meet and to work together on their projects. So that was a really important part that kind of is a little dormant now because of COVID, but we hope to continue in that path in the future. And besides that, there are other companies in the United States that have a very similar model, but those models are really focused on the shipping, the 3PL part, not necessarily the community-driven part that we're looking for.
Jeff Climan and Simon Berman of Clickspace and Montreal Mini Storage. Hang on, guys. We'll ask for your one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur in a moment. But first, we welcome back Alida Eid, HR consultant at PVisio by FL Montreal. Welcome back, Alida.
Thank you.
And Mike, picking up on our conversation with Alida a few weeks ago, people and culture, and especially how that is shifting in post-COVID times.
For those of you that are regulars, and you'll remember Alida from the last episode. However, for those of you that aren't, we're going to contextualize a little bit of the conversation because this is part two. Alida, maybe just give us a little bit of a definition of what the employee experience means and where that goes, because I'm sure if you ask a different generation, you're going to get a completely different discussion of what employee experience is.
Yes, for sure. So last time we did talk about onboarding practices and how we had to change our onboarding onboarding new employees after hiring them. And then we talked about employee experience and as to what is employee experience exactly. So onboarding is part of it, but the employee experience is really the journey that employees take with you in your organization from the hiring process and up to their departure. So it's really the different milestones, the interactions, anything that you have to offer them, from their interactions with their manager to their colleagues, the actual workspace, and their alignment and their feel towards your purpose, your brand, and your culture.
So if employee experience is the journey, then employee experience during COVID is a roller coaster. How has it played a role, I guess, in the COVID? How's it played a role in the employee experience over the last 15 months?
Yeah, very well said, Mike. It was a roller coaster. At the beginning, what COVID did is that when COVID arrived, most companies were operating in a crisis management mode, let's say. We were learning and adapting on the go because we were all, and I think I said it last time, we were all dealing with fear and uncertainty at the same time. So what was happening in the world was happening to everyone. So when employees looked up to their leaders for answers, their leaders were also looking for answers themselves. And then when time passed, really what happens, human beings, they go through, different emotions when change hits. So after the shock phase, if you want, all of us together realized that this was actually happening. It's here to stay, and that it's even here for good now. So people and culture experts and leaders had to really work with the precious information that was given to them by the employees. So through active listening, let's say, and observations, we were able to detect and really have a good sense of how employees were doing and the level of engagement, and with that, adapt our practices. So what we noticed is that the people's needs shifted completely towards maintaining mental health, well-being, safety, a sense of belonging. So really what that is that the circumstances, okay, reminded us of the importance of our basic and psychological needs in life. So in terms of employee experience, knowing this and hearing this from candidates and employees, what that guided companies to explore options like offering flexible work arrangements, flexible schedules, offering virtual healthcare, development and training for new skills. And Mike, you mentioned that earlier. We're going to have to develop new skills. I'm not sure what they are at the moment, but we'll find out. And revisiting the type of employment categories or employment types that we offer. Are we fully hybrid? Are we full-time, part-time? Are we, are we offering different types of arrangements for depending on the positions? So these are the things that we had to really explore and open options for.
So traditionally, I think we measured employee experience in either retention rate or alternatively, turnover with our employees. We alternatively also looked at, profitability. If we were more profitable with the same people, then obviously our message is getting down and we've been more successful. And that means that our culture and our employee experiences, it must have improved. I don't think that holds true anymore. It's how are we going to measure employee experience going forward?
So you mentioned turnover. You're right. Turnover was always kind of like the KPI that would lead you to knowing if you're doing something, if you're doing things right or wrong. Even if companies adapted and had to reinvent themselves and put in place new initiatives, turnover was still there. And it was there not necessarily because of poor experience. It was there because people went through a lot. They lost loved ones. They took opportunities for introspection, to rethink their lives and career aspirations, and some of them just made the move. So turnover right now is not necessarily the best way to measure it. So I would say just keep a pulse on how people are feeling. I do mention active listening a lot, but it is the answer because employees are the ones that will give you the exact input on how they're feeling, what they're missing. They provide you the right feedback for you to adapt accordingly. And Mike, also you mentioned the fact that change is constant now. We have no choice. So as we listen to the feedback that they give us, I guess we're just changing and adapting as we go with them. And to keep offering a healthy experience, I really like to mention that it's really a two-way street. It's a relationship between two parties, two people. So we collectively have to make the efforts for all of us to have an overall experience. So really, for companies, I would say offer training and development for your leaders. Make sure that they're equipped to offer the same support to their employees and make sure they help them throughout their careers. And just lastly, I would say having the right mindset, being open to feedback, developing emotional intelligence, self-awareness, all that will help us in our willingness to progress together.
Thank you very much, Alita Eid, HR consultant at Pvisio by FL Montreal. And Mike, as we near the end of the program, let's head over to Jeff and Simon of Clickspace and Montreal Mini Storage. And guys, your one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur, please. Let's begin with Jeff.
My advice for entrepreneurs out there is to focus on the factors that drive your business success. Trying to do everything will inevitably lead to slow growth or burnout and a poor work-life balance. It's important to focus on those drivers of success and look for help, assistance in those other areas.
And Simon?
Just that starting and managing a business is very, very, very difficult, but could also be extremely rewarding, both emotionally and financially, if you're doing it right. Entrepreneurs really need to be persistent and not get discouraged. Change will come, but you need to have a backup plan and be ready for when things go off the rails. And most importantly, just to have fun. Once you start an entrepreneurial venture, it becomes your life and you need to enjoy your life.
And I'm going to pipe in quickly one quote from the Stoic article we were talking about before. I want to leave everybody with this one thought. So, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. I think that plays nicely into the resilience discussion at the end of the day. We can only control what we can control.
Thanks very much. And Mike, and thanks, Jeff and Simon, and best of luck with this interesting new venture. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you so much
for having us.
And thanks to Alita as well. We'll see you back here with more Today's Entrepreneur in a couple of weeks. Don't forget, you can subscribe on iHeartRadio, iTunes, and wherever you find your podcasts, along with over a decade's worth of entrepreneur profiles at today'sentrepreneur.org. We'll see you back here soon.
Thanks, Dan. Stay safe.